You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Oh, today's a good one. Today we're talking about everything that Amazon is doing wrong or anything that annoys us about Amazon. So I think we can talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah. My biggest fear is that this is going to be a long episode. That's
It might be. Yeah. So do you have any pet hates that you find with Amazon?
I do. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I've had this for years when it comes to Amazon KDP, not necessarily KDP, Amazon as a whole, but when it comes to no content and low content books, is that they put them in with the regular books, and instead of, especially, line journals and things like that, in my opinion, that should be in with stationery, which would mean that if you're selling that type of book, you would have a much better chance of getting even more sales because you've got less competition. But also, if you're a writer, which I happen to be in both fields, and so you're not trying to compete, your written book with 500 line journals that somebody knocked out last week, and so I think as many times as Amazon changes the categories and everything else, and they're doing that kind of stuff, they actively are making things easier for the customer, is what they say. That's their number one, they're the thing that they preach the most, is that they're all about their customer. Then why not put stationery in with stationery?
Absolutely agree with that. I was saying that the other day. And also, it gets more difficult for us as low content book creators because it's not always that easy to find a category. I know we always say go with your niche, but really that's not the right thing to do. If they're looking at it from the customer's point of view, how does a notebook with a horse cover, for example, go into equestrian categories?
Right.
It's not a book about horses, it's a notebook. So that is just so wrong. And they haven't really solved that problem by making that category change that they did recently.
No, not at all.
And it would be so much easier to just have a category for notebooks or category for, I don't know, for journals or anything like that. Anything that doesn't have an ISBN anymore could go under a particular category. I don't really think that categories matter too much for low content books. I don't know if you agree or not, but I have personally never found that they matter. So it would be very easy to do that, to create a different category for low content books. But yeah, definitely agree with you on that one. I find that is one of the things that is, I just don't understand why they haven't done that. But obviously I don't understand how technical that would be for them to do. I don't know.
Well,
but
and it shouldn't be, especially going forward. I mean, maybe doing it reactively to the things already published, but things that, KDP has already added in that checkbox where you check that this is a no content, low content book.
Yeah.
And so by checking that box should automatically, go as a programmer, I can say that, it should make it that much easier to say, okay, funnel this to this, these to this system, and then, whether you are doing anything manually to review it or, defining what you would consider stationary, because obviously I wouldn't put necessarily coloring books in with stationary, but programmatically you can have your bot or whatever look and see, is it a line journal? That's a very easy thing to look for.
Yeah.
If it is, that's definitely stationary.
Yeah.
And I think that if they and that's something, that little bit of, scripting, that bot, that's something that can be done on products that already exist, just going, because, clearly by all the accounts that they're closing down, they've got bots that are going through and checking already existing products. And so you could look for this type of thing. Literally just have a bot that just looks for, lined notebooks.
Yeah.
And at least, if nothing else, all of those should be in stationery. And just think of how many thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of books could be taken out of books and put into stationery just because of that. Because I mean, line journals are a huge thing. And starting in like 2014, I think was the first time I heard of, this big boom where, oh, you can create these line journals and make tons of money or whatever. And so then people are just knocking out hundreds, thousands of them. And, I mean, and I've done it, there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't think they belong in books.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. And they do have a category for coloring books because it's a completely different thing. I think it's adult coloring books, and I'm sure there's one for children. I haven't checked. But with coloring books, there is a specific category you could put your books in. There's nothing for notebooks. And I still make notebooks and they're still selling. So it's not that they don't sell, but people are saying it's not worth it. There's still, if you're making a notebook that speaks to somebody, that is in a niche that people want to buy, absolutely there's a market for it. And you would avoid all that stuff with all the same books that are, just changing one word or changing the different covers in different colors, and all that's spammy. And there should be a way to avoid that as well. But there should be a separate category for them, because I just refuse to put a notebook that has a horse on it, just as an example, under books that are written books about horses or about horse training or about. It doesn't belong there. It's just ridiculous. If someone's looking for specific book on horse training and they want to read about it and find out, and then there's a notebook among all of that, or if worse even, there might be 1,000 notebooks in that category. I was just going to say the
chances are there won't be one.
Exactly. That would be so annoying as a customer. So I really think they need to think about that. But it's been going on for such a long time now. I don't know. Hopefully something will change, because they did at least acknowledge low content books now. So hopefully that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah, here's hoping. Yeah, and that actually brings me to another point about all the different notebooks that get accepted with completely wrong titles, with I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but what really annoys me is when I find all these notebooks that say, for example, happy first birthday, happy second birthday, happy third birthday, happy, and so on and so on. And then before you know it, you've got, I don't know, 50 books in the same color even. And then they make another 50 in a different color with the same thing. And that is so annoying. And I think Amazon need to really put a stop to that, because first of all, they don't sell. They're no good for anybody. And they just clog up the whole system. It takes time for people at KDP to approve those kind of books. It's just a mess. And I wonder whether it might be a good idea, and I know this is controversial, but it might be a good idea to charge for each upload, even if it's just $2 or whatever, but that might stop that kind of behavior, which isn't good for anybody. It's not good for us who are publishing, let's call them quality books or better books, and it's not good for the people who produce all that, because they're not going to sell them. They might sell one or two and that's it. And
and I think, to be honest, there's a really good chance that, especially when they knock out a bunch of like hundreds of books or whatever, in a day or in a week, many times because they're in it just kind of like to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. I feel that they're not really learning anything.
No.
See, when you put out, like when I do the puzzle books, and I recommend, someone asked me how many puzzle books should I do, and I'm like, when you do it in a niche, if it's a new niche to you, I suggest no more than 3 to 5, because by doing that, you give customers enough that if it sells, enough that they can, they can get some more, but also you're learning, you're learning that, okay, so this, this niche is working for me. This isn't. Even within the same niche, this type of book is working, this isn't, and you can learn, and that's how you continue to grow your business. But if you're just knocking out, 50 books that all say the same thing, but you change one word, you're not learning anything from one to the other. Your quality is exactly the same in all of them, and so especially if it's your first book, it's going to look like your first book, and even though it's your 50th book, it still looks like your first one because it's the same thing. And so one option is something that the Amazon already does, and that is with Amazon by Merch by Amazon, where they do it in tiers, and so when you're starting out and you're tier 10, you can only create X number of products within you can only do one a day, and you can only do a total of 10 products or whatever. And so while I don't think when it comes to books, it should be limited that low, I definitely think that would be something that would help instead of, because it can get really overwhelming if you're just starting out, and then, somebody else is starting out and they're knocking out a bunch because they got plenty of free time because they're, they don't have a day job, and you do, you feel, people, even though we say not to compare each other, compare yourself to others, we do. And so it can be an easy way to kind of level that playing field. But also for us that have been doing it for a while, we would get the bigger tiers, we'd be able to put out more stuff. And because we're putting out quality stuff, we may not put out as much as somebody who's just, got a system that's just spitting out hundreds. And so I think it honestly benefits everybody, especially the customer, because they're not getting inundated, when they go into a category, they look up a keyword with just a wall of a bunch of stuff that isn't what they're looking for. It's not the quality they're looking for. It's not maybe not even the topic they're looking for. Maybe it was mislabeled, but that's another thing that Amazon does wrong.
I know. And do you remember the days when people used to bulk upload books? There were like apps and software that you could use to upload thousands and thousands. And this was in the days when Amazon was still giving us ISBNs, free ISBNs. Imagine the amount of rubbish that's on Amazon with an ISBN. I just found that mind-blowing that people were let to get away with that because they got away with it. I think they finally stopped that because I don't hear anybody talk about bulk uploading anymore. And I think it would have stopped anyway because people would have found out it doesn't work. That doesn't sell your books. And but that is just such a frustrating thing. And the frustrating thing is that when you're a beginner and you don't know any different, you see that on Amazon. And I've done this. I've seen that and I thought, oh, this must be the way to make money on Amazon. You just put loads and loads of notebooks. And I did that at the beginning. I made a series of books. I call it a series. It's not a series. I made several books that were called Just a Girl Who Loves, and then a hobby, or an animal, just a girl who loves llamas, or just a girl. And I made a few of those thinking, because I saw them on Amazon, that would be the way forward. Imagine if I had uploaded thousands of those books. I wouldn't be here now, I think. And I think that is the mistake that Amazon are making. They're letting people put low quality books or loads of those books on Amazon without stopping that, they must have sort of previewed those books and thought, these ones are called the same thing. And it just, the title just changes one word. And I don't know. I'm not saying I'm blaming Amazon because that's us doing it wrong, but I do blame them a little bit because the system should be preventing that somehow. There should be something that says, no, you can't do that. You can't upload so many books with the same title and just change one word. I don't know how difficult that would be to do, but I don't know. And it's not because some YouTuber told me to do that. It's because I was seeing that on Amazon. And it's the same as with titles, you know, when
Right.
people used, I did that as well at the beginning. I put the size of my book on it. You know, I made a journal, 8.5 by 11 inches lined paper. And that was in the subtitle. And that, again, that's so wrong. And Amazon don't let you do that anymore. And the only reason we did it is because it was already on Amazon. So you think that because it's on Amazon, that must be okay. And then it turns out it's not okay. So why are those still on Amazon?
Right. Exactly. And that's just it. And I, you know, one more thing that Amazon does wrong is, you know, like you said, you know, they don't want us to keyword stuff and stuff like that. And yet, not only are their books still out there that, you know, they didn't, you know, but they corrected some of them. Like some of them they would take down, but not all of them. I think that's my biggest issue with is they kind of, it seems like the system, as big as they are, picks and chooses. And but the other thing is I've seen new books that still do that. So it's not like there's anything in the vetting process that is stopping it. You know, if you happen to get the right or wrong person, depending on how you want to look at it, if you happen to get the person who is doing their job correctly at KDP. So I mean, I always thought it was, you know, just automatically accepting. But if that was the case, it would catch things like that. I'm a programmer. You know, I know what to look. You know, you would basically look for certain keywords. You know, and obviously you can't catch everything because you can't account for typos and things like that. But you can get rid of the things I'm seeing on there that were published yesterday that still have keyword stuffing. Ones that still have, I've actually saw one last week that actually had like old school keyword stuffing. By that I mean in their description, at the bottom of their description, just had a bunch of keywords, like just random keywords, made no absolute sense. And I'm like, and it had just gotten published like not too long ago. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how is that not getting caught? You know, how is, you know, how do they not have some kind of script that looks at it and says, if they're, you know, especially if it's at the bottom, because I mean, I get it. You're going to get people, if they want to work the system, will always find a way. You know, I understand that. But that said, at the bottom, you know, if the last, you know, X amount of characters in the description have this many commas or whatever, things to at least flag, not necessarily kick back, but flag for someone to manually review. You know, those kind of things. But like I said, it's absolutely programmatically doable. You know, when you know the technology that they already are using, and you know, as sophisticated as the A9 algorithm is, and you know, on how to figure out who to show your books to, and also bots and all that other stuff, that they're literally, it's got all this learning that it's doing. And yet something as simple as, you know, looking for a bunch of tags at the bottom of your description is not something that they're flagging. You know, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And I think you made a really good point there that, you know, it's all right almost if the books that are already on Amazon, if they just draw a line underneath and say, okay, let's leave them as they are. Thank God, because some of mine would disappear as well. And if they leave them as they are, but let's not accept any new ones with all of the things that we're telling people not to do. So there has to be a way, because I know it's down to us. We tick the box that we accept their terms and we should have read them and we should, but where does it actually say that that's not what you do? It doesn't actually say that anywhere, because I looked, you know, so it does give you guidelines. It says, you know, do this and do that, but it doesn't really go into the details that some people are looking for. And if they do, it's not easy to find, because I haven't found it. But I just think there should be some kind of solution to it, because otherwise it's just never going to end. It's always going to continue. And I find it really annoying when Amazon flags something up in one of my books and I'm thinking, oh, I didn't realize that, but that book has it, and this book has it, and this book has it. And of course, that's going to annoy anybody, even me.
Yeah,
and I'm not the kind of person who gets annoyed easily, but it does annoy me because you see it on Amazon. So you have to be consistent. And I think you just said that as well. You have to be consistent with what you accept and what you don't accept.
Right.
You can't let one person through and not the other.
Right. And I'm not saying to like block the book. I'm just saying send it to draft.
Yeah.
Let them know what they did wrong or what is potentially wrong. And then have them address it. And by doing what you just suggested, by having it be something that when new books, is something that automatically is looked for, when you resubmit a book, it would catch it immediately at that point. So it's twofold. It's fixing looking for it when it's first, published or submitted. And then the second part is to go and, search the huge, millions of books that are currently out there and start sending to draft the ones that are, are violating or potentially violating. Which leads me to another thing that Amazon is doing wrong. And you kind of already alluded to that. And that is, can we please, in any way, shape, or form, make the terms of service that you're going to hold us accountable, like in lay terms, like to where, yes, we agree to them, and I get it, legalese and that whole thing, but why does it have to be that way? Why does it have to be legalese? If you're really all about the customer, then you want to make sure that the people creating products for your customer are doing things as properly as possible. So why not put it in lay terms? And even if you want, legalese and then another section that's explained in English, if you will, paraphrased something, so that way we at least have an idea as to what the other stuff says, and an idea as to what we're agreeing to.
They could do it in ChatGPT.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
you could type it in and say, "Can you explain this?"
Well, just say take the current terms of service, stick it in there, and say, create a a simplified version of this, and in terms that most people would understand, or something, however you want to word it. It's all about the prompt. But yeah, I mean, because that's the thing is I hear all these people with these KDP terminations, and I don't think Amazon is a huge villain in that. I really don't. I do think they make mistakes. I've seen it, but that said, I think a lot of it is just people that are saying that they got terminated for no reason. Their frustration is that when they ask what they did wrong, they're just given something generic, like you violated terms of service, and not anything specific. Show me where. Show me what I did. How do I mean, it's like when you've got, you got little kids and they do something wrong. You don't just say you did something wrong. You tell them what they did wrong so they do it better, so they don't do it again. And so, that's another thing is it's like, I don't think they're a huge villain in that they're terminating random people, like they're doing it just to spite, I've also heard people say that, oh, they're just doing it to take my money. I could talk about that in a whole nother episode, but it's like, do you not realize how big Amazon is? But that said, I do think that that is a huge deal. Like you're holding people accountable for the terms of service that they're signing, rightfully so. Why not make it a little bit clear what's in that terms of service? And when you send a message saying that they are violating something and they ask what specifically they violated, tell them, and don't just send these blanket cookie cutter responses. I know KDP's account team, they're not a super big team. I think there's only like 20 or so employees. I know that. And so when you think of the vast number of people that are on the platform, they can't respond to all of them. But if you get a response from somebody that says, what specifically did I do wrong? Give it to them, because I don't know if they still do, because I haven't had to deal with them recently, but like when I was uploading something and I got something kicked back, I'd say, what was wrong with it? They would respond back with a screenshot and show me and highlight. That's amazing customer service. Mm-hmm. Showed me exactly what I did wrong. I fixed it. I could send it, no problem. Why not do that when you're doing something as severe as closing an account?
I mean, I totally agree with that. And that is one of the things that annoys me when I see people writing or posting their, my account has been terminated. Oh, what happened? What email did you receive? And then they post the email they received. And you think, well, that doesn't make it any clearer. That right. is just, and that makes me quite angry as well, because I think, it's such a big deal for that person to have their account shut down. Why not explain it a bit? But then on the other hand, I've had several dealings with Amazon where they've sent me things or they've knocked back a book very recently as well. And I talked that right. in my last video on my channel. And I've gone on the chat bot thing where you can talk to somebody, and they've been as good as gold. They have explained exactly what was wrong. And when they didn't know, they said to me, I'll just talk to the team. Hold on, I'll get back to you. You know, they were brilliant. So now I'm thinking, is it that they haven't communicated effectively with them? I don't know. I just don't know, because I haven't had that experience with Amazon. They've always been very, very good with my dealings with them. But I wish they would not send out generic emails in the first place, because like I had my latest book, my Home Boss Toolkit, that was knocked back. And I talked about that, so I can talk about it here now, because right. this comes out after my video. And that was because I used the word toolkit, but the email I received at first didn't mention that at all. It just said that the title sounded like I was offering an audio book or something with it. I can't remember the exact, but I didn't know from receiving that email what the problem was. And then I went on the chat bot and asked them. They didn't know. He said, let me check with the team, because I can't see what's wrong with it either, which makes perfect sense. And then he came back and said it was the word toolkit, because that was a confusing experience. It suggests something different. But then I said to them, content creators use that word all the time to describe things. And also that they had already approved my companion workbook. Yeah. So, you can't approve one book and then not approve the other one.
Yeah. And that goes back to the consistency we talked about.
Exactly. So the funny thing is, I was all ready to change the titles, and I found an even better title. But then I would have had to change the interior as well every time I referenced it. But I was willing to do that. And then they came and said, we can still publish it. We're okay. We'll do it. And I thought, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah.
I don't want to rock the boat too much. So it's just, I think everybody's experience is probably different. But because I see so many of them saying that they don't understand why this happened, I wish they were a little bit more transparent, a little bit more detailed to begin with their first email. And like you said earlier, we don't want them to shut down accounts or block books or anything. We just want them to say, well, this is not the way we want it done. Can you change it? And then it's fine. Then people have the chance to change whatever they need to change. That's I think that's not too much to ask. But it feels as if they're shutting down accounts left, right, and center for no reason.
And to be honest, I hate to do the comparison, but it's Amazon, so I'm going to. Again, with Merch by Amazon, you don't just, like, if you violate something, you get a strike. Yeah. Like with YouTube, if you violate copyrights, you get a strike. It's not just boom, you did this wrong, you're closed, can't create another account, you can't do, what I mean? Like, it's not all or nothing. It's not so severe. Now, that said, just like with Merch by Amazon and YouTube, if it's a severe violation, then they can jump straight to the 3 and close your account. So it's not like, oh well, then people can abuse it. No, they've already thought of that. So again, it's within the same overall company, Amazon. So I don't understand, I don't know why that's not kind of migrating its way over to KDP, because I think that's, especially, they're, as YouTubers, let's just, be 100% upfront and honest, is there are YouTubers out there that are teaching the wrong way to do things. And if you're new to this industry, if you're new to books and creating books and self-publishing, and you happen to stumble upon one of those people teaching you the wrong way, you're innocently violating the terms of service. And so instead of being, gently, getting a little slap on the hands and saying you can't do that, you're completely, caught off guard by, why did my account get terminated? I have no idea. That's what so-and-so said to do. And they made thousands of dollars in a month, back in 2014 or back in 2014, when there weren't as many, Amazon wasn't as advanced as it is now. There were a lot of people trying to manipulate the system, and there always will be. There'll always be someone trying to find the easy way to do things. So I think that doing something like the three strikes and you're out kind of thing is a better way to, one, improve the products that are out there, because all the things we talked about where you start flagging things and stuff like that, those can be strikes, but you're teaching them and you're helping them become better, put out better products for your customers. That is supposed to be your number one priority.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I mean, I don't know. Just to be a little bit balanced as well. I mean, Amazon is such a big, I don't know what to call it. It's like, if the word truck comes to mind. If it was like a big truck, if you imagine that, it is difficult to stop something like that and to change things when it's such a big platform. And I mean, anybody who's had a little blog will know that as soon as you tweak something, you break 10 other things.
10 others, yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine it's a nightmare for Amazon, because it's huge, and whatever you do affects something else and affects something else, and it's got a snowball effect. I don't know what the solution would be, but I wish, I mean, some solutions are easier to implement than others. And I think that the transparency issue, that's not such a big deal, I guess. And they could change their help pages a little bit to make them more transparent, and to, all of those emails that they write, they could have on a help page and translate them. Or what does this mean? What could this mean for you? That would be an idea. I don't know, but I mean, I'm not Amazon, so it's, luckily I don't have to think about it. But...
Yeah, I mean, and not to make this, I mean, because I know we're talking about, the whole topic is what Amazon's doing wrong.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love working with Amazon. I work with Amazon on multiple different platform or areas, not just in books and merch and everything else. But and that's one reason why I'm able to suggest things that are working in other areas of Amazon, but I don't expect things to change overnight, but these are definitely areas that I think could be better. And one of the suggestions that you made, I think, is great for the listeners is, when you do get those emails, I've completely stopped emailing back, and I use that chat bot.
Yeah.
That chat bot is amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I work with AI. I'm a programmer, so I honestly think it seems like it's a human being on the other end. It really does. It does.
I think it is.
It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't seem like a bot, and if it is impressive.
Very good.
But I definitely would suggest to people, especially if you're having issues and you're getting frustrated going through the email route, and obviously, in most countries, you're not even have a phone number option. So I would just do the chat option. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't expect, these changes to be overnight or I mean, heck, probably never happen. But these are just a few of the areas, in my opinion, where Amazon is wrong.
And I tell you a positive from that. People keep saying they're going to get rid of low content books. They're not going to let us do AI. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. Everything is doom and gloom, and Amazon's going to shut us all down. No, because if this has been going on the way it is for so long, it can only get better. It can only, I don't think they're going to shut down anything, and they're just going to slowly improve things, as the years go on. Unfortunately, I measure it in years because it's not something you can do quickly. So
yeah, I mean, and like you said, especially as big as they are, I mean, I understand that it everything is a process and everything's got to go through beta. I get it. You break, Amazon breaks Amazon, and it's everything's come to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
But, and again, that's one reason why I was bringing up things that are already working within their system, like the 3 strikes you're out thing. But I think just something as simple as, in the meantime, things like you said about the help, the help pages and translating what these automatic emails, the verbiage means, it could be one of these 3 items, look at, or whatever. And then of course the other things that we talked about, like changing, obviously things like, doing, checking all the books that have happened before and moving things over to stationary. I mean, those are all great suggestions, I think. Yeah. But again, I don't expect them to happen overnight, if at all. No. But, I think that these are things that, if your customer is your number one priority, I understand that you're buying customer, but you also have to remember the people that are creating the products for your paying customers.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think a lot about the customer's perspective when I create things for Amazon, because we're not just creators. We want to sell what we're creating. Right. And if you don't think that way, then you have to reverse engineer what you're doing in a way, look at it from the customer's perspective. And for that reason, I think that those would be really good improvements that Amazon could make to help their customers as well. It's not just about us. It's about how we can produce products that are better buying experience for customers as well. I don't know. I mean, I think, we need to end this on a positive note, I guess. And, we could make a video on all the good things about Amazon, and that would probably just as long, if not longer. Because, like I said,
I don't want it to be doom and gloom, and no. I don't want it to be an entire, Amazon bashing party. No. But that said, I mean, especially when your company as large as Amazon, you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. No company's perfect. No person is perfect. And so there are definitely areas of opportunity, as we would call it in the business world. And so, I mean, there's definitely areas that Amazon can get better. And of course, as big as they are, that puts you, higher up on, and more visibility. So it's going to be even easier for people to kind of pick apart what you're doing wrong. I mean, when you're in all these different areas. And so, I mean, I absolutely, you could do it, like you said, a video on everything I love about Amazon and working with Amazon, and using Amazon.
Yeah. And I think knowing that KDP is such a small department, I think they're doing a great job. So if you're listening, guys, well done.
Yeah. The people I've dealt with at KDP have been amazing. They've been amazing. I have not had any issues with an individual person at KDP. Yeah. They've always been great customer service and everything else. It's really just, like we said all the suggestions we gave and issues that we brought up are all, they're all system type things, not the company itself, not individuals. It's systems in place or not in place, depending on what the topic is. I would be interested in knowing from anybody who's listening if there's any topics or any areas of opportunity that you think Amazon have that we haven't brought up. Let us know that. This has been another great Mastermind area. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's Mastermind, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast and leave us a review and let us know what you thought. It means the world to us. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.